welcome back to Shrouded Subterrane. Monster Files by Nick Redfern. Bringing matters more up to date, in September 2012 the incredible and most admittedly controversial testimony surfaced of a former National Guardsman who claimed to have been present at Mount St. Helens when the alleged recovery of the military of a number of Bigfoot bodies took place back in May 1980. Maintaining that he was part of a dedicated cleanup team on the mountain, the unfortunately anonymous source stated that it was not just dead bodies that were found, living specimens were reported uncovered too. The man claimed that after being warned by a member of the military to forget everything he might hear or see while on duty, he had several colleagues who were ordered to wait by a nearby jeep in an area where they had made camp. After half an hour or so went by, another jeep pulled up, and a man in civilian clothes got out and proceeded to a nearby tent. There was nothing strange about that, except that when the man exited the tent, lumbering alongside him was what can only be described as a Bigfoot, which apparently displayed significant evidence of major burns to its body. After this astonishing sight, there came an even more amazing development. Incredibly, the bulky creature clambered into the back of a parked truck, along with the man in the suit, and the astonished guard and his group were ordered to follow. On 5 occasions they stopped, always in the vicinity of burned forest area dotted with caves, and the same thing happened each time. Both man and beast exited the truck, and the latter issued strange vocalizations in the immediate direction of the caves and woods, almost as if he were calling to his own kind in a concerned fashion. This may have been exactly what was going on, because at 2 of 5 of the sites, incoherent animalistic replies were heard. One was from an injured creature that was rescued, the other from a creature so severely burned that it had no choice but to be put down out of his misery with a swift bullet to the head. Once they returned to camp, the guardsman and his comrades were once again advised that they should keep their mouths firmly shut regarding everything they had just seen and heard. In a field filled with outrageous and unverifiable claims, this is one surely has to be near the top of the list. Regardless, it has quickly become a staple part of the legend of Bigfoot bodies on Mount St. Helens, so I think it deserves to be at least highlighted here and kept on file. That goes for the other data that appears in this particular story as well. Yes, these accounts are fascinating. Yes, they suggest a highly orchestrated project to recover and hide bodies of at least several dead and injured Bigfoot, and possibly even to assist them. If the 2012 testimony of our mysterious National Guardsman can be trusted, and yes, the US government seems to have done its utmost to prevent any of this information from getting to the hands of the general public. But here's the problem that faces the cryptozoological research community. Not a single solitary source that has ever commented on their alleged direct involvement in, or knowledge of, the matter has gone on the record with his or her name or background data revealed. That does not mean the entire case lacks merit. It does, however, suggest that when it comes to Bigfoot, we should always note the differences between what we know to be provable fact and which inhabits a realm filled with rumour, hearsay, and whispers. Real Monsters, Brad Steiger. The Demonic Power of Illusion, Demons from the Dark Side. Demons are inhabitants from another dimension, another plane of being. They have never been angels, and they have never been human. Demonic entities are credited with will and intellect that are directed towards evil, as they exert their malevolent powers. When these evil spirits penetrate the world and the circumstances of human life, they conceal themselves in every aspect of earthly existence. When it serves their purpose, they may assume the form of a lovely woman or a handsome man to seduce and confuse the human. These entities are succubi and the incubi. William Michael Mott speaks to these demonic powers of illusion in his very well crafted and superb book, Caverns, Cauldrons and Concealed Creatures. As of late, conspiracy and UFO literature alike abound with similar accounts of entity and human sexual intercourse, the only difference being that most of the reptilian seducers or rapists are male, and the human victims are female. Often these accounts also involve abduction to underground bases or caverns, cavern worlds, or close proximity to a cave or cavern in which the rape takes place. Another version of the succubus or incubus attack or rape occurs when a participant awakes fully, at least mentally, can see and feel but can't move a muscle. Science refers to all such cases as sleep paralysis and states that the condition is due to an awakened mental state while the body is still asleep, or the person is in a hypnagogic state. Often, these incidents are accompanied by waking dreams or hallucinations, in which the victim feels, senses, or sees someone or something else in the room or beside the bed, or even feels a body or electrical pressure or weight descending upon them. A few female victims have reported actual physical intercourse with an unseen entity or group of entities, and this has, according to them, led to rape by invisible presences at later times, when alone and fully awake. Some see a psychological connection or cause to the latter type of supposed hallucination, often arising in theory from childhood trauma or molestation, but not all experiences have such a thing in their chest of childhood memories or secrets. Some victims have noted that the emotions of fear increases the severity and frequency of the attacks, while praying to God for deliverance halts them, or ends the phenomena completely. Rather than hallucination, this would seem to indicate a conflict with unseen operations on the terms of a spiritual world. This calls into question the nature of this intrusive reality and its intrusive, abusive inhabitants. Some evidence indicates a physical reality that requires bold, seminatal matter, sperm and ova, and perhaps an ongoing ritualistic pattern of inflicting pain, fear, desire, and even servitude for purposes of emotion or energy vampirism and behavioral conditioning. Folktales and mystical traditions are filled with accounts of these beings and their ability to shapeshift, as well as their forms, from seemingly fleshy to barely substantial or opaque to absolutely transparent or invisible. The Apostle Paul may have been alluding to this in Ephesians 6:12, when he named a hierarchy of enemies who oppress and victimize mankind and oppose the will of their Creator. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. Something not quite human paid a visit to the quiet village of Van Meter, Iowa, in the early 1900s. The little town, with a current population of just over 1,000 souls, received a truly rude awakening in the autumn of 1903, when they discovered something huge and bat-like had crept out of an old abandoned mine shaft and headed, where else? Downtown. The first hint of weirdness came in the wee hours of September 29, when Aloysius Griffiths, a local tool and farm implement salesman returning from a business trip, witnessed a strange, unidentifiable light hop from rooftop to rooftop over the town's business area at about 1 a.m. He had no way to investigate at the time as he was tired, so he continued home and went to bed. The next evening, about the same time, the town physician, Dr. Alcott, woke to some bright light shining in the darkened bedroom. The good doctor grabbed a firearm and went out to confront what he probably supposed was a burglar. Instead, he was met with the strange form and horrifying glare of the classic American gargoyle. Lewis, Voss, and Nelson described the creature that stared back at the doctor as half human and half animal, with large, membranous wings and a blunted horn growing out of its forehead. The doctor pummeled 5 bullets into it, but although he fired at fairly close range, the monster seemed unaffected. The monster was as consistent as it was invincible. It appeared yet a third night on October 1st, as it preferred witching hour of 1 a.m. to a bank cashier named Clarence Dunn. He had headed to the bank to make sure the supposed burglar that had been lurking about the town left his place of employment alone. He was sitting inside, armed with a shotgun, when he heard a strange wheezing noise, and then saw the telltale bright light beaming through the front window of the bank. He could make out a huge shadowy figure looming just outside, and he shot it right through the window pane. When he ran to look, though, there was no dead creature lying outside, just a very large 3-toe print in the dirt. The creature woke up another businessman, who had fallen asleep as he guarded his store from the second-story apartment. He fired upon the dark shape he saw sitting on a wooden telephone pole in the street below, and like the banker, believed that he had hit it. Instead, the creature trained its eerie light straight at him and used its large hooked beak to help it shimmy down the pole to the ground, while yet another startled citizen witnessed it standing erect, the light still beaming from its forehead. This man estimated its height at 8 feet. The creature then took off, leaping like a kangaroo, according to the last witness, while flapping its wings as if it was trying to take flight. It may have been scared away from the business area by a train that rumbled into the station just at that time. At any rate, the creature headed straight into an old nearby mine shaft. The monster apparently stayed in its underground sanctuary until 1 a.m. on the morning of October 3rd. A group of men working late-night factory shift in the vicinity heard a strange sound coming from the mine shaft, and then saw not one but 2 of the creatures exit the shaft, their lights ablaze. The pair, one of them slightly smaller than the other, took wing and sailed off into the moonlit night. The sight galvanized the factory shift eyewitnesses as the whole town of Van Meter woke up and turned up their electric lights. In no time, an armed posse organized and stationed itself at the mine shaft to wait for the creature's return. And return they did at about 5:45 that morning, right about sunrise. As the pair of gargoyles came closer, the men all took aim and fired, but the only response of the creatures was to release a putrid odor that had also been smelled by one of the downtown businessmen. The creatures flew back to the mine shaft, after apparently avoiding the hail of bullets, and were never seen again. The Swedish cave dragon. Lindorm. Lindorm is a Swedish word for dragon, a creature which even in 19th century Scandinavia was no mythical beast. It was something people could encounter in the countryside, especially in or near marshes, caves, and bodies of water. In 1885, in a book on the subject, scientist and folklorist Gunnar Olof Halakalavasis collected 48 first-person accounts, one from a member of the Swedish Parliament. Half the account claimed multiple witnesses. The informants described Lindorm as 10 to 20 feet in length. The body of Lindorm is as thick as a man's thigh. Its color is black with yellow-flamed body. He has a flat, round or square head, a divided tongue, and a mouthful of white, shining teeth. The heavy and unwieldy creature has a stubby tail and wild, hypnotic eyes as large as saucers. Aggressive and powerful, it would hiss and contract its body, billows, and then raise himself on his tail 4 to 5 feet up and pounce upon its prey. According to Han Carval, it was possible, though difficult, to kill a Lindorm. In its death throes, it would emit an overwhelming foul odor. Encounters were terrifying to witness. Witnesses often for years afterwards suffered what today would be called post-traumatic stress disorder. Rewards were offered for a dead Lindorm. No takers were ever found. It would be the last scientist to take the report seriously. Lindorms, whatever they may or may not be, are seen no more. His leading ufologist is Brad Steiger, author of many books on the subject. Mr. Steiger has received an astonishing journal from James C. Watt of Memphis, Tennessee. The journal was purportedly written by Mr. Watt's grandfather and discusses in detail an experience with a crazy bear in the year 1888. An Indian is supposed to have led Grandfather Watt to a hidden cave in Tennessee where a hairy man-like creature was concealed. The Indians fed the crazy bear at regular intervals, asserting that the creature were ejected from moons, which landed periodically in the valleys. The Indians told them that over the years there have been many crazy bears left in the woods, and many of their people have seen the skymen put the crazy bears out of their moons. So there is one solution to our mystery. The flying saucers are dumping hairy monsters all over the landscape. Wyatt's crazy bear is describing a short-necked, long-armed creature covered with glossy black hair. The secret door in the rock face. The skeletal remains of 7 giants was featured in a curious story about a sealed cave with a door cut into the rock that was published in the Phoenix Herald in 1892. The article is quoted in a chapter entitled Royal Treasure, published in a book entitled Arizona Cave 103 by Joseph Miller. The book is a compendium of old newspaper reports, and it contains several very curious articles. The 1892 article is about a man named Andrew Pawley, who claimed to have made a discovery around 1889 while searching for some stolen horses. He saw a most peculiar appearance of the face of the rock in one of the remote recesses or clefts of the cliff, up which had gone looking for water, which gave me the impression of the work of some human hand. It looked like a small door cut in the rock and again skillfully closed by some dusty material. I was too thirsty to have any curiosity then, so I pulled on for the top of the range. Andrew Pawley then returned to the place in 1892, believing that the sealed entrance was a door to a treasure chamber, says the Phoenix Herald. As was noted last week, they was about to go out in search of what is considered a very peculiar artificial opening in the rocks among the mountains, which now prove not to be very remote from the orchard of the upper valley. Paul started out with a prospector's outfit and succeeded in finding the object of his search, and furthermore, that it was a genuine piece of masonry in a cut opening in the solid rock, and of such thickness and consistency that with a prospecting pick, hammer, and other tools, he was 5 days in the making in opening through the cement and rock that packed the opening, which is not now much larger than a man can crawl through. Paul tells a wonderful story of his discovery in the chamber behind the barricade, through which he had worked his way. He found a chamber apparently cut from solid rock, not less than 24 feet in dimension and about 10 feet in height. The floor was covered by 7 immense skeletons of men who in life must have been no less than 7 feet in height, and there was further evidence that they must have been warriors, as the remains of what were copper shields, copper spearheads and battle axes and other artifacts were found with the skeletons. A most interesting discovery was a small ornament, a crude amulet apparently of gold, a metal that has never before been found in all the searches that have been made of the ancient Aztec mounds and ruins so plentifully disturbed throughout this region of the country. Yet more important and startling discovery was an opening at the farther end of the chamber, also closed with what appears to be a sort of rude bronze door, so neatly and accurately filled into the solid rock that barring a jut of the rock over and at the sides of the door, it might have just grown there, so solid does it appear. It is about 2 by 3 feet in dimension and of unknown thickness, but when struck sounds as though it is either lays against solid rock or is of great thickness. The mystery of this second discovery now occupies Paul's attention, and he provides himself with the necessary means to remove the door, or heavy bronze plate set in the side of the cave, or whatever it may be. As we have above been indicated, the place may prove a treasure house of the Aztec tribes, or it may prove nothing more than has been found. But at any rate, the discovery is startling and an interesting one. Pawley, who works entirely alone so far, travelled to town on foot yesterday, and guards his treasure with the greatest secrecy. So far as its location is concerned, though, he talked very freely with a Herald representative as to what he has found and what he thinks he may find, which he believes to be nothing less than a treasure vault of an ancient royalty. Nothing more was ever heard about this astonishing find. The 7-foot skeletons on the floor are very intriguing, but no further information is known about this amazing discovery. China's titanic toads. A number of internet websites pay tribute to a narrative that describes a hitherto unfamiliar brood of tremendous toads that inhabit cavernous pools in China's western Hebei province. This stems from a nebulous tale of an encounter that was supposed to have transpired during the summer of 1987. The incident alleged involved a party of 9 biologists hailing from Peking University who were conducting field research in the wilderness areas close to the city of Wuhan. The operation was apparently being overseen by accomplished Professor Chen Mon-chong. As the academics assembled some photography equipment adjacent to a small lake, a trio of colossal creatures ascended from the depths of the water straight in front of them. The mystifying 6-foot-wide animals resembled amphibians and had a pale skin, huge eyes and gaping mouths. After a few anxious minutes, things got really weird when one of the monsters unfurled an expanded tongue enveloping an entire camera rig, As this unreal scene was materializing, the two other beasts belched weird and sinister shrieking sounds. In an instant, all three of the things had plunged back into the abysmal darkness of the lake and were not seen again. In the aftermath of this traumatic confrontation, one of the witnesses is said to have gotten violently ill and vomited. The Tatzel worm of the Alps. When I was 15 years old, my father and I took a bus tour across Switzerland. This memorable adventure unfolded during an idyllic summer of 1982, and one of my truly favourite memories from that time is attempting some light trekking through the gorgeous Alp mountains. I'll never forget the intoxication I felt upon hearing about an enigmatic local creature referred to as the Tatzel worm. Based on eyewitness descriptions, this elongate, fair-sized animal did not seem to resemble any type of worm at all, since according to general accounts, it possessed a thick, scaly body, sharp teeth, and at least 2 limbs. Most curious was the animal's apparent aggression towards innocent passers-by, as well as proclivity to pounce great distances when defending its territory. Some have claimed that the Tatzel worm emits a hissing sound when threatened, and others that its bite is laced with venom. Oftentimes it's viewed slinking into the caves and crevices at higher altitudes. On the surface it certainly sounds as though a sort of dragon survived to present-day Europe. Confrontations with the Tatzel worm were evidently so commonplace during the early 19th century that its image was portrayed in Bavarian field guides at the time. An Australian hiker logged one of the more memorable sightings as recently as 1933, but run-ins with the Tatzel worm seem to have diminished dramatically since then. In 1967, in another incident near Catanala Island, 2 boys, vacationing on their parents' boat, discovered that they both lacked any memory whatsoever of a specific period of time one day. They were never able to explain this until, as an adult, one of the boys allowed himself to be hypnotized in the hope of finding out what the pair had been doing during that episode of missing time. What he remembered was not comforting. He was able to recall that somehow both boys were conducted to what he thought was some sort of round underground room by creatures that looked like giant praying mantises, a particularly monstrous type of presumed ET that is described fairly often by UFO abductees. Dennett noted that this recalled encounter was echoed by Malibu author Kim Carlsberg, whose book Beyond My Wildest Dreams recounted her own multiple abductions by praying mantis types, and even more common greys, that have become our standard go-to image of alien beings. If all of these witnesses are to be believed, we are left with the sobering conclusion that more than one race or species of unknown humanoid may be entrenched beneath the waters of South California. In Sweden and Denmark we hear about trolls, gnome-like beings who lived in the earth and who are physically deformed. The leprechauns are supposed to live underground too, and woe to anyone who tries to find their hiding places. From time to time they are said to kidnap children and whisk them away forever. In UFO lore we have the Deros, who are supposed to live underground in secret caves, or even in the hollowed-out center of the earth. Variations on this underground dweller theme can be found in ancient Oriental legends going back thousands of years. Not all of these little people mythology is baseless. Archaeological evidence of a sort does exist. The ruins of ancient cities in South America have been found honeycombed with tiny tunnels, staircases, and passageways so small that a normal man would have to traverse them on their hands and knees. Who built these things and why? Even in the United States, the New Salesman, Hampshire is not far from Exeter, site of the UFO flap in 1965. There is an ancient construction of tunnels and tiny chambers built long before the Indians arrived. They say the little men constructed the place. Another elaborate system of tiny tunnels lies outside of Peru, home of many saucer flaps. A large number of people reported seeing 2 luminous dwarfs get out of a disc near Cusco on August 20th, 1965, and the governor of Santa Barbara, Peru, solemnly declared that he encountered 2 tiny humanoids walking in the snow near Lake Calucacha on September 12, 1965. They disappeared, he said, in the midst of a deafening noise. The late Phil Schneider, in a series of lectures, claimed that due to his employment on several secret government projects, he was privy to information that some would kill to keep quiet. In a speech given in 1995 at Post Falls, Ohio, Schneider described his involvement with the Black Budget projects. "I love the country I'm living in more than I love my life. But I would not be standing before you now risking my life if I did not believe it was so. The first part of this talk is going to concern deep underground military bases and the Black Budget. The Black Budget is a secretive budget that garners 25% of the gross national product of the United States. The Black Budget currently consumes $1.25 trillion per year. At least this amount is used in black programs, like those concerned with deep underground military bases. Presently there are 129 deep underground military bases in the United States. They have been building these 129 bases day and night, unceasingly, since the early 1940s. Some of them were built even earlier than that. These bases are basically large cities underground connected by high-speed trains that have speeds up to Mach 2. Several books have been written about this activity. Richard Sauder, a Ph.D. architect, has risked his life by talking about this. He worked with a number of government agencies on deep underground military bases. In and around where you live in Ohio, there are 11 of them. The average depth of these bases is over a mile, and they are again basically whole cities underground. They are between 2.6 and 4.25 cubic miles in size. They have laser drilling machines that can drill a tunnel several miles long in one day. The Black Projects sidestep the authority of Congress, which as we know is illegal. Right now, the New World Order is depending on these bases. If I had known at the time I was working with them and the New World Order was involved, I would have not have done it. I was lied to rather extensively. Basically, as far as technology is concerned, for every calendar year that transpires, military technology increases about 44.5 years.